is Carl Mangialardi, the Stone Hunter, and today I'd like to discuss a topic that we get a lot of questions about. There's a lot of confusion, a lot of misinformation out there, and with our more than 2 decades of specializing in the field of travertine, limestone, and natural stone in general for both interior and exterior use. We have a lot of experience with this issue, and we'd like to share some of that with you today. Now, cleaning and sealing natural stone, it's really not the big mystery it's made out to be. If you just follow a couple basic concepts, and we're going to discuss that today. The first thing I'd like to point out is that there's different levels of how hard or how much you want to clean a natural stone. If it's just your routine cleaning, I would suggest using store-bought stone cleaner that you pick up at any hardware store, or you could even use dish soap diluted properly. So that's for your basic cleaning of dirt on the stone, or basic maintenance. Now, if the purpose of the cleaning is for resealing or getting some serious stains off of it, or you really just need to give it a real serious cleaning more than just using a degreasing agent, then we often recommend doing a mild acid etch. Now, people get all scared about that, and they're going to worry about ruining their stone. Now, of course, I would never recommend this on a polished stone like polished marble. I'm talking about, either a honed surface or tumbled, limestone or travertine or marble, tumbled, not a high polished, then you want professional restoration done. But if you just want to give it a little hit to brighten up the stone a little bit and really give it a serious cleaning, you would take muriatic acid that you buy at any hardware store, dilute it like 10 parts water to 1 part acid, test it in a little corner first, and make sure it doesn't sizzle too much. You should see some slight, I want to call sizzling or movement in it in the test area, and some reaction, because you're basically, the calcium carbonate in the calciferous type stones like travertine or limestone, sandstone, they're going to react with the acid. If you see a violent reaction, I would dilute it a little bit more, obviously. And then what you want to do is first flood the area with water. So for outside, right after a rain is perfect. For inside, you want to mop the floor with some clean water first and let that penetrate into the stone a little bit, and then do the acid wash on top of the damp floor. So the thing to do though when you're doing this is you want to put the acid solution on there and move it around. You don't want it to just be sitting in one spot. You want to keep flushing it and moving it around with fresh solution, because the acid will neutralize after a few seconds. Not 100%, but it'll be, for the most part, neutralized after, say, 5 or 10 seconds, 15 seconds on the floor, depending on how strong the mix is that you put on there. So after that, you're going to have a very clean, new surface. You've basically taken a couple microns of the surface away and etched it away chemically. So what this will do is make your stone look a little bit brighter. It'll color enhance the stone a little bit, almost give it a little bit of that wet look. Won't give it a wet look, but a little bit in that direction. And therefore be ready for resealing. Now, sealing or resealing, and there's 2 steps that you can take with that. You can just seal, or you can seal and then color enhance. To do that, you want to wait till the stone has been dried for, I would say, several days first, so it's really completely dried out. because the way the stone sealers work is it's a hydrophobic repellent. You know, it repels hydrophobic, ionically repels moisture. And if the stone is not dry, just by definition, you know, the sealer, which repels moisture, is not going to penetrate into the moist stone. It's just not going to. So you need it to be really, you know, crisp, dry before you're gonna try and add a water repelling sealer. So you have to understand this is a penetrating sealer. It's not a prophylactic sealer like when you paint wood or put varnish on wood. You're not coating the surface. It's actually penetrating into the stone and then sitting inside of the stone, hopefully for perpetuity, but you know, for as long as it can. And it sits underneath the surface and repels the water and repels moisture from entering into the stone. So that's how that works. Now, as far as sealing and then color enhancing, you want to follow the manufacturer's, of course, directions, but typically you do 2 coats of sealer. With the sealer we recommend, which is dry treat, you do 1 coat in a small area, and then you do a second coat like 10 minutes later, and that pushes the first application down deeper into the stone, and you do that second coat like 10 minutes later. So you have to do little 10-foot, you know, 10 square foot spots at a time. And then you would wait till like a couple days later and add the color enhancing step after that. So these are some important things to consider when you want to do your sealing. And you know, if you're going to do a little restoration work on your stone, I would do that directly after you do the etch. If you're going to like fill some little holes in the travertine, or you have some grout issues or what have you, you want to do that acid etch step first. So it really will give something, a surface for the new grout or whatever you're adding, you know, to fill the holes, which would typically be, you know, complementary color grout. But that slight etch will make the grout application really grab hold onto it. But again, when if you're putting grout into holes and grout lines or whatever, and you know, if you're doing your little you know, handyman restoration of the stone floor, you know, particularly for interior, you want to make sure that that grout has plenty of time to dry, and not just dry but cure, because you want to allow the outgassing of the moisture to occur over, you know, at least 2 weeks. But you know, technically, preferably, you're supposed to wait 28 days for any kind of cement curing to do, and grout is a type of cement. So, you know, you're going to have outgassing. Now, 90% of the outgassing will be done in the first couple days. And then, you know, the next week, another 5%, and then the next week, another 3%, next week, another 2%, until, you know, so on and so forth, until it's completely outgassed. But that goes back to the point of the hydrophobic characteristics of the penetrating sealers. They're not going to go into that grout and protect it, because it won't enter it because if it's still damp. So you really need to make sure that grout is really thoroughly dried. I mean, at least a couple of weeks before you then attempt to go back and seal it. But these are some of the considerations you want to have when you want to approach that. And let me tell you, there's a lot of misinformation about how you can't use acid on these stones. I mean, yeah, of course you can't pour a strong acid mix on there and let it sit. It's going to damage the stone. But unless you have a high polish marble or travertine or limestone or sandstone, it's not going to damage it, especially if you flood it with a little bit of water first, let that soak in a little bit, and then you put a dilute acid solution on there. It's just not going to hurt it. I mean, it's not realistic. Theoretically, it damages any, you know, carbonate-based, calcium carbonate-based stone, you know, in theory. But in reality, you're putting such a dilute solution on there that it's really nothing to worry about. So I hope this helps you out with your little mission of cleaning and sealing your stone. And for further clarifications, feel free to reach out to us through our website. Thank you.
Okay,
Oh,
go ahead.
and another important point I would like to stress about sealing the stone is how you select your sealer for your stone. And this is something that is really an important consideration, because if you go to your typical big box hardware store and even buying the same brand as you would buy from a tile shop, typically, it looks like the same bottle, the same brand. The big box stores push the suppliers, the manufacturers, to sell to them at such a low price point that it's actually not the same formulation inside. The way that the penetrating sealers work is there's a certain amount of what's called solids it mixed in with the carrier substance, which, you know, is a solvent of some sort, and the solids content typically is much better if you buy it from a tile shop or someplace like that. The solids content for what you buy in the big box stores is less, and therefore it's less effective. So basically, a sealer is solvent and what's called solids, which is the active ingredient that repels the water. And to reiterate, the solids content in what you buy, even from the same brand that you might get in a tile store, and the bottle looks the same, everything looks the same, you know, but when you buy it from the big box store, it'll be less expensive. And it's not because the big box store is necessarily giving you a good deal or they buy in such big volume that they're giving it to you cheaper. No, the formulation is actually not as good and it's different. So please source your sealers intelligently, and do not penny pinch on sealers. Sealers is a very important component to your floor. Look, you're going to spend, you know, $10,000 or $20,000 on a floor or a pool deck or kitchen floor or pool deck or what have you, and then you're going to, you know, scrimp $50 on the sealer. It's not a good way to go. It's not smart. So really take that serious. It's a very important consideration.